Remote sampler. This video will provide instructions for how to correctly use the remote sampler to collect water samples needed to conduct each water chemistry test. AWW recommends monitors collect their sample directly from a stream or lake, about 6 to 12 inches deep. Occasionally, it is not possible for a monitor to safely reach the water body. It could be that the banks down to the stream are too steep and you must access the water from a bridge. In other cases, due to mobility issues, a volunteer may have a hard time kneeling on a pier to collect a sample. The remote sampler can also be used to test water at different depths in a lake. Some volunteer monitors choose to do this because the Alabama Department of Environmental Management has set the standards for dissolved oxygen in lakes to be measured at 5 feet deep. AWW has one approved remote sampler model that can be used to collect water in these instances. The use of buckets, jars, or other containers to collect water for testing is not approved. To begin, use the remote sampler to collect water for rinsing glassware before collecting water for your tests. Allow the remote sampler to reach ambient temperature, then unlatch and open the remote sampler. Take the dissolved oxygen bottles from your water chemistry kit. Uncap and position them inside the sampler in the two circular cutout areas, which are designed to hold the dissolved oxygen bottles. Then close the sampler, making sure that the tubes are positioned, extending into the uncapped DO bottles. Submerge the remote sampler into the water. You should lower the sampler to the depth that you would normally collect water chemistry samples, which is typically between 6 and 12 inches below the surface of the water. Wait for bubbles to stop emerging from the sampler before lifting it from the water. Open the sampler by unlatching it. Use the thermometer to measure the temperature of the water inside the sampler immediately after you have lifted it from the water. Rinse the test tubes used for pH, alkalinity, hardness, and turbidity tests with the water inside the sampler. Then take the DO bottles from the sampler and pour the water collected in them into the rinsed test tubes so that you can conduct the pH, alkalinity, hardness, and turbidity tests. You will need to flick off excess water so that you have the correct sample volume for each test. After you have completed those tests, replace the DO bottles in the sampler. Submerge and allow the sampler to fill once more. Lift the sampler from the water once the bubbles have stopped. Carefully cap DO bottles underwater inside the sampler and conduct the DO test. To speed this process, you could consider purchasing an extra set of DO bottles. Remember to rinse the remote sampler thoroughly with tap water and allow to dry after sampling. To ensure the remote sampler functions properly, do not store it in extreme temperatures.